Yeah. We have transcoder options. Hello, how are y'all doing today? I'm Federico. Welcome to the channel. Let's see if we can try to finish Ace Attorney. Took a nap. So let's see how far we can get. We have to finish this trial so we can start reading the platinums. I'm pretty sure we can't do both. We can maybe finish the trial today. So let's see how far we get. Alright, so lastly on the Extra Life Discord. Alright, we're ready. Volume goes up. Alright, Jagogo was about to testify. Prior to renewed testimony, I would like to clarify one point. The fact that you're part of this part of the victim's watch was recovered in your cabin means that you acknowledge he was there, I presume. Yes, I do. Yes. Very well then. You received to give your formal testimony about exactly what happened in your cabin aboard the ship in the evening of October 31st. Of course. As a man of law, I have no intention of obstructing justice. This trial can get the events of the cabin. I had a guest waiting for me when I returned to my cabin. I had a guest waiting for me when I returned to my cabin after finishing my evening meal that evening in the dining room. When I walked to the door, a mustached gentleman was there, foolishly waving a gun at me. Really? So I took care when I Ippon Seoi Throdo. He couldn't wait to run after that. Imagine his watch broke and I threw him over my shoulder. There's nothing I could do with his murder. The inspector clearly was clearly killed returning to Britain because his body was found in London. Ippon Seoi. A common judicial martial arts technique in my country. I was careful not to use too much force, but the man obviously let it too heavy for his watch to take. So you're just looking at Naruto? Imagine you can see the flaw in your logic now, can't you? What? The pocket watch broken in the witness's cabin. No way proves that the victim's murder took place there. Well, thought the inspector intended to kill me, but he didn't even manage to pull the trigger. Yes, because he was merely a tactician, not the Reaper's hand of death. Well, this testimony appears to make sense, as far as I can tell. Let me expect my deep gratitude for your understanding, my lord. The testimony holds that Shikoku Edema had no involvement in the case. Well, counsel, I see no reason for wasting precious time in the court here in a cross-examination. Shut the fuck up, Judge. Jackass. Oh. Sorry, my lord, the defense has the right to cross-examine, and I don't intend to squander that. You're an embarrassment to your countrymen, not knowing when you're beaten. In that case, proceed, Mr. Naruto. Embarrassment to the country is you. The events to Kevin. I had a guest waiting for me when I returned to my cabin after finishing my evening meal in the dining room. Because the so-called guard post on your cabin door has just let your killer pass, you mean? Apparently Gregson told the crew he was a police inspector, which is true, of course. He wouldn't have had his identification with him, though. He has trench coat and mustache, not to mention a bag of chips. I imagine the crewman was convinced. But the man accompanying him would have had a sword swung at his waist. You mean me? Who else? Yes, that's true. You'd have hoped the sight of a few swords might set off alarm bells in the guard's head. The point is, I left the cabin before the occupant returned, and I immediately disembarked the ship. Oh yeah, then how's his trunk slashed? Certainly, all I can tell you is that the inspector was waiting for me to arrive when I'm back in my own cabin. And you entered without an inkling of suspicion. That's right, none whatsoever. I walked through the door, a mustachioed Easterman was there, foolishly waving a gun at me. Judge bitch, sir. How about the Inspecting Gregson? Yes, so at the time I didn't know the man's name. And there was no time for introductions. I valued my life over manners. By which you mean that the inspector was there to assassinate you, I suppose. Well, certainly the impression given by the gun pointing in my direction. I've never seen the muzzle of a revolver shake about so much in my life. And would think the man had never shot somebody before. He hadn't. Believe it or not, most of us haven't. Anyway, there was no time to call for help on the crewman at the door, so I dealt with the man myself. I soon took care of him with an Ippon-sei throw, though. He couldn't wait to run away after that. Even though the man had a gun, it was a very brave move, wasn't it? Ho 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 ho. My Ippon-sei is faster than a bullet, I can assure you. No, it's not. But surely all that commotion caused the crewman to come in, didn't it? Yes, of course. He burst in immediately without knocking. The inspector hurled himself to the stocky fellow and managed to sit past him to make his escape. The outstanding guard does it again. Luckily, there aren't many situations I can't get out of using a quick Ippon-sei throw. I I imagine his watch was broken when I threw him over my shoulder. It has nothing to do with his murder. The crown snapped off and the glass covering the face of his watch was cracked. Preferable to the man's head being pulled off his spine cracked, wouldn't you say? Not that the man was spared for long. A bullet to the chest saw to that. Point is, the broken pocket watch has nothing to prove that the murder took place. Absolutely not. All the watch proves is the power of my Jujutsu throw. Whatever you say, it doesn't quite ring true that no shot was fired in the cabin. Because there was an obvious bullet hole in the wall. Ha 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 ha. What are you talking about? That's what the star of the Left Brow detective stories told you, isn't it? I don't care for such fiction. Haven't you worked it out yet, you little stripling? No murder took place in my cabin. Oh, really? Spectre was clearly killed having returned to Britain because his body was found later in London. The ship has a refrigerator. But there is no evidence to prove the victim ever returned to London alive. Just take a moment to think the idea of yours through, stripling. Now, stripling. What? If the inspector was killed in the steamship in France, how on earth could he have gotten back to Britain? When people die, their bodies remain in that same spot. It's the devil of a thing. Well then, I see the culprit must have moved the body. How exactly? Carry a corpse off a ship in your arms would raise a few eyebrows, at least, don't you think? Well, yes, that's true, but a passenger luggage was inspected when it's unloaded from arriving vessels. And I would like to think that the border police would carry a corpse on the Englishman as hand luggage. If the murder had taken place aboard a ship, you would examine the body disposed of at sea. It makes no sense risking being caught by attempting to transport the body back to Britain. That killed my idea. But perhaps not. Mrs. Otto. You heard the first-class passengers were under constant scrutiny by the crewmen posted at the garden. Which would mean that the culprit had no opportunity to dispose of the body at sea. Exactly. Yes, that's true. Though transporting the body to Britain may have been the only viable alternative. Dear me, are you really new to this, aren't you? I thought it would have been perfectly clear, but I'm going to have to explain in words you can understand. They gotta alter my testimony with your consent, of course, my lord. I have no objection. State your amended testimony now. There's no possible way I could have transported the victim's corpse back to Britain. You lie right there. You have a trunk to fit you. And you're much taller. There's an idea. Think about it, stripling. All passengers and crew disembarked at the same time and passed through the same checks on the border. The symposium guests were driven straight to the hotel in carriages organized by the ministry. And we met you as soon as you arrived in the hotel. So you did. Well then, remind me. Did I have a corpse over my shoulder at the time? What? No. So in agreement then, I couldn't possibly have brought in the inspector's body back to Britain. Unless of course they developed some clever device these days to instantly move things from A to B. Funny you should say that. Inspector Harebrain's invention didn't actually work, if you remember, Mr. Naruto. Yes, of course. The defense has become unusually quiet, I notice. Yes, because there's really nothing more to say. So that's his story. Well, I suppose if you're going to think about it, whenever you drop a teacup in the office and it breaks, We don't say, Mr. Naruto, we have been murdered. Must have been murdered there, Rui. Is that a veiled threat about what might happen to me if I break another one? The fact is that Inspector Gregson's body would have been found in a little room on Fresno Street. If he really was killed in Judge Ikoku's cabin, body would have had to been moved somehow. Well, obviously, hint, hint. Let's bring that one over a country border. That would have been possible for a majority of people. Majority. Must have been some special circumstances that made it possible for the culprit then. That could be the vital realization, I think, Mr. Naruto. Yep, you could have had a body. Let me show you. Let me show you. It's a possible way you could have moved Inspector Gregson's body, you say? I will say the opposite is true. And what's that supposed to mean? Far from being impossible for you to do, the transporting of Inspector Gregson's body is something only you could do. What are you talking about, Ryusuke? As well as being a judge, Mr. Ikoku is Japan's Minister of Foreign Affairs. Which means he's exempt from having his luggage searched when he enters the country. We learned that when we first met upon you upon arrival in London. Well, all those passenger checks and luggage searches at the border took rather a lot of time. Must say I'm very envious of your ministerial status. You didn't have to go through any of that, did you? Oh, I knew you were jealous. Ha 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 ha. I presume you recall this, Judge Ikoku. This photo. The photograph we took at the foyer of the hotel to mark the occasion. As you know, your very large travel trunk. Large enough, in fact, to have a corpse inside of it. Mr. Naruto, surely you're not suggesting he was already there. And dead. I'm afraid I am, yes. 3 days ago, when we were chatting innocently with the new arrivals from Japan in the hotel, the body of the Inspector Gregson was just meters away from us, inside Judge Ikoku's trunk. Now he's shocked. If he was innocent, he wouldn't be so shocked. Order! Order! Order in the head. Order in the court. Futurama, never to die. I'm skeptical, counsel, that a grown man body could fit inside even the largest travel trunk. It could. Because I happen to know that the witness himself was considerable size, fits inside that trunk. You don't really see his knees much, do. And verifying that would be extremely simple, wouldn't it, Judge Ikoku? Verifying that. But inside his trunk, how horrifying. After he spoke to you at the Great Waterloo Hotel, you had the opportunity to visit an apparent scene on the Fresno Street. And taking your trunk with you to a cab, you deposited the inspector's body. I don't have to listen to this nonsense. Dr. Gori, the main coroner who examined his body, has confirmed the possibility. She acknowledged there are signs and steps that may have been taken to disguise the true time of death. Honestly, the composition could have been delayed in sort of a refrigerator. Counsel, as I remember explaining yesterday, Rodriguez's requisites are few and far between. Yes, I'm sure they are. But one place they're certainly found is on the large ocean liners. Such ships are equipped with electrical refrigerated cold rooms to keep fresh food on long sea voyages. And SS Goose is no exception. Professor Mikutaro told me about it only yesterday. Well, Judge Ikoku. However much you prolong this debate, you can't eliminate the truth. All the evidence points to you being the killer. Dot dot dot. Ha 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 ha. All this is all very heartening. I can see that it was a wise move letting Asagi and you embark on this study tour. What are you talking about now? Logical reasoning, of course. All core proceedings will be built on logical reasoning in the new century. And I can see that you both laid on firm foundations for that already. Judge Ikoku, please stop diverting attention from the issue at hand. The defense has made an accusation against you. How do you respond? Respond? There's really no need for me to respond, is there? Why ever not? Because before you can even begin to answer the question of when the victim was killed, you must first establish one key fact. Where the victim was killed. It's quite logical. The actual scene of the crime. The prosecution's stance is on alert. The killing took place on Fresno Street when the gunshot was heard. The firework was heard, you mean? As the accused, Baron Zeke, shot the victim at point-blank range. No such tangible evidence exists to disprove the prosecution's claim at this time. The defense's deductions amount to little more than elaborate fairy tale. I'm afraid that's how logical reasoning in the British are known for really works, young stripling. The victim was shot in that little room in Fresno Street and died instantly. I'm afraid that's the prosecution. It's the prosecution claims that's the only fairy tale here. Can you say that? Quite simply, because the claim directly contradicts a certain piece of evidence in our possession. Very tantalizing, counsel. I think you had better explain yourself in court, do you? Prosecution claims that Inspector Gregson died instantly when he was shot in the scene in Fresno Street. But this evidence clearly contradicts that claim. I don't think I need to present this. I want to say this. Close range front. Remember the judiciary, huh? Let's see. The crown prudes was in the room. That proves he was going to France. I want to say this is a trunk. I don't think of that, though. The Japanese really are a curious breed. To offer such an argument with such conviction only to present such nonsensical evidence. Perhaps my Japanese friends' inexplicable thinking is why people talk about mystique of the East. In case you hadn't noticed, I'm not the only Japanese around here. Do you even have a mirror? The court is not interested in the mystique of anything. You will be penalized accordingly. They killed him on Fresno Street and moved there after his death. Shows the answer to this clearly. Perhaps you should try to present the correct one this time, then, Mr. Naruhodo. Gonna try again? Or can you hold your hand steady enough to point it out? Okay, it just goes back in. Pretty claims it was Grayson died instantly when he was shot in Fresno Street. Japanese. This is the gun. On Fresno Street. We're going back to the pocket watch. That's the other coroner report. What's the proof he was killed in Fresno Street?
Take that!
No. Not the watch. Yes. Dunkirk. Imagine where is the steamship ticket. Yeah, I didn't think it'd be the gun. The gun, we have no real forensics on it either. I don't think it's the autopsy report. My paper, passport. Well, it shows he didn't die there. The only other thing I can think of is a rabbit. Crown of the watch. I don't know what is that. Oh. Yeah, didn't think so. Karma? No. Such nonsensical evidence. Well, it contradicts that he died on Fresno Street. Nope. We already talked about the candle and all that, so... Well, the wig, you know, he wasn't... He was dead with the wig, but... Why is he wearing the wig on Fresno Street? No. Yeah, okay. Let's see the logic behind this. Photograph of the victim killed in the very location you claim he wasn't killed. A photograph of the victim in the very location you claim he wasn't killed. Yes. The point is the posture of the body itself. Ah, yes, because he's in the trunk. If Gregson had been shot in that room there... the question is, his body would have been curled up like that. Objection. I'm sorry to disappoint you, but your logic is flawed. You lazy have adopted that fetal position due to the pain of the shot and subsequently proved fatal. He said he died instantly. I'm sorry to disappoint you, Judge Shikoku, but it's your logic that's flawed. What? According to this autopsy report, the victim died instantly. He had no pain, felt no pain, much as been able to draw himself in that position. Oh. Which begs the question of why the victim's body is curled up like that, in that way. Though the answer should be abundantly clear by now. The trunk. You're suggesting the inspector's body took on that posture ahead of his arrival in Fresno Street, before it was coldly turned out onto the floor. From the inside that large travel trunk. No! You're quite right. The shape of the body. Exactly as it had been kept in a confined space. Shikoku, present your trunk for examination. If there's blood in there, I believe it's very possible that it contains traces of the victim's blood. Oh! Present my trunk, I refuse. What? On what grounds? I'm the Minister of Foreign Affairs here from the Empire of Japan. I should have to put up with this treatment just because of some stripling's baseless accusations.
In other words, Judge Ikoku, there's blood in your trunk.
I decline to answer that.
There should be blood on his back, too.
As the Minister of Foreign Affairs, I have privileges that allow me to... No.
At this moment, you're not a government minister. You're a witness in a trial in Britain's highest court. Don't care who you are or what your status is outside this courtroom might be. You will not withhold information. Nothing is more important than the truth.
Oh! Order in the court. Well, Mr. Chikoku, what will it be? Well, Mr. Chikoku, what will it be?
You can't be serious. You did it?
Have you no shame at all, Kazuma-sagi?
What? ...
Very well, I admit it. I did bring the inspector's body into the country. Inside my trunk, exactly as postulated by the defense.
What?
You? Dear God. Outrageous.
So it was you. You admit that Inspector Gregson's were... Do not bite.
No, I meant nothing more than what I've said. Killing the man, I had no recollection. What on earth is that cryptical statement supposed to mean? I merely disposed of the inspector's body, which was left in my cabin, in order to avoid unwanted attention. As the judicial censor over there pointed out, I had no chance to throw it onto the ocean. So, I decided my only option was to bring it into Britain with me and dispose of it somewhere else.
You can't still deny that if you didn't do it, then who on earth did kill the man?
As you know, there was one other person in my cabin that night. He had the opportunity. And moreover, he already accepted a mission to take the inspector's life.
Oh.
That's right. Where else could it have been? It was you, Kazuma-sagi.
Well? You... I never thought you stooped to this, Seishiro Jikoku.
You've taken the word straight from my mouth, Prosecutor Kazuma-sagi. You thought by leaving the body in my cabin you'd pinned the crime on me, did you? Well, the prosecution has already admitted to visiting his cabin on the night in question. Yes, on the assassination mission, no less.
You wouldn't.
So, what do you make of that, young stripling? You've heard my testimony now, and it's all I have to say on the matter. I admit to nothing more.
I don't believe this. I didn't kill him, I just moved the body. Okay. It's progress.
Counsel for the defense. What is your position now? The court awaits your response to witness assertion. The assertion that on the night in question the victim's assassin was in fact Mr. Kazuma-sagi.
Isn't it dead end it seems to be? The answer's right in front of me. Comes down to Jikoku or Kazuma. Both of them had the opportunity to kill Gregson, but only one of them actually did it. Might just a step away from proving who. Well, the defense is ready to respond to the assertion performed by Judge Jikoku. The idea that the victim could have been committed by prostitute is... well, it's possible. It's not impossible. Well, it is possible, my lord. What? How could you? You think I want to believe it? But the fact is, I can't say with complete certainty that, well, actually happened because I wasn't there. You disappoint me, Ryunosuke. If I may, Mr. Naruhodo, I think perhaps that's why we form opinions based on evidence. Ah, so true. Actually, we have evidence to settle this argument right now, conclusively. Well, the defense would like to present evidence to support of before you plow through for feigning ignorance of what just occurred, Counsel. Must be penalized for that sort of embarrassing. Oh, you just uttered a moment ago.
Yeah, you get a penalty for it.
Though, I really thought I could just brush past it if it was quick enough. Never mind the penalty, sir. The truth is the matter. Judge Ikoko, let me remind you of something you said a few minutes ago. Well, it's true, like, yeah, it's either impossible or it's possible he would kill them. Like,
you can swap the answer and you don't get the penalty.
Like, it doesn't really matter in the end, but he claimed that the logical reasoning is the future of the judicial process. There is no question. Logical reasoning can prove something here. Namely, it would have been possible for Yosagi to commit the crime. What?
You want some fun?
Yeah. The court will only accept an argument as support by compelling evidence. So present what you have, Counsel. What proof is there that allegedly demonstrates that the impossibility of Prosecutor Sagi's involvement? So I'm guessing that'll have to be the sword or the trunk. You're making the evidence weep here, man. Sorry? Every piece of evidence has already a role to play in the right being of the truth. They're not plate things you can toss around the court for entertainment. Never mind the evidence. You're about to weep. Make me weep, Mr. Naruto. Cap says Suzato-san. Crew was set to drill outside that night of the cabin, so as long as the guard was there, it would have been impossible to fire a shot without being heard. Ah. So it was a notice. So it's the notice, the itinerary for the crew members of the SS Goose, my lord. It's the conclusive proof. An itinerary? How's that prove anything? Judge Ikoko, the moment you acknowledge that you found the victim's body in your cabin, this itinerary suddenly became much more significant. Yeah, a good size like before.
What? How? Why?
Night in question, as always, a coolant sentry is right outside your door in your cabin. As long as he was there, nobody could have fired a shot inside your cabin. Absolutely, because it's inconceivable that the guard wouldn't have heard it and come investigate. So that tells us that the crime must have taken place when the guard was elsewhere. That narrows it down to 20 minutes after the 10 o'clock, just indicating the itinerary.
Yes, I see no flaw in your reasoning so far.
Thank you. But the crucial point is when the evacuation drill took place. Seems to be very put from sea from the port of Dunkirk.
Oh.
Now, clearly that murder only have a commitment to somebody who was on board the vessel at the time. As prosecutor Asagi stated in yesterday's proceedings, I didn't come to Britain to take anyone's life. So I left Gregson and I disembarked on the ship. Spent the night on board a boarding house in town. Returned to England the following morning. Which I'm sure the court could agree is conclusive proof that Kazuma Asagi couldn't have possibly carried out the killing.
Oh.
Hold it. Hold it. Oh, no, absolutely not. I cannot accept that at all. What do you mean? The body is just saying that the boy is just saying that to exonerate himself. You cannot trust what is really that he really disembarked the vessel. Obviously, after he left the cabin, he hid himself somewhere nearby on the ship. Just waiting for his chance to come back and finish it. The crewmen will be back by then. No, that's out of the question. Isn't it, Kazuma? As the defense rightly recalls, disembarked the vessel and spent the night at the boarding house in Dunkirk. As I said yesterday, I signed my name in the combinations register book. All extremely easy to verify and undeniable proof.
Oh, no. Alright.
There's no escape this time. You forget that you're a judge or a government minister. Somebody gave the court an honest answer as a common man. You killed Inspector Tobias Gregson and transported his corpse back to Britain. He dumped the body in a room in Fresno Street and made it look as if a murder had happened there. That's what really happened, isn't it? Say Shiro Jikoku. It was a damn trial 10 years ago when all this began. Looking back now, my fate was decided that day. I was already doomed. He broke the thing again. It's over. My life is over. A British assassin to eliminate a professor in Japan. A Japanese assassin to eliminate the detective in Britain. Both assassins would use diplomatic immunity to evade the conviction and return safely to their homelands. The assassin exchange request arrived from Britain about 1 year ago. Though it was hardly a request. It was a demand. And for that you decided to recruit Mr. Asagi. But things didn't go according to plan. Your chosen assassin never made it to Britain. But things didn't go according to plan. Your chosen assassin never made it to Britain. You found yourself unable to dispatch a replacement. Because I was already on my way to Britain at the time, in Kazuma's place. And that left me with only one option to carry out the obligation. To eliminate the mark myself, personally. Of course, there was but a single opportunity for me to do that. The International Forensic Science Symposium, I presume. That's right. Decided it would be the safest to carry out the plan before my arrival in Britain. So enlisted the help of my British counterpart. Made the arrangements for a pretext that would take it that would take the inspector to Dunkirk. The Lord abandoned and he was given a sham mission by the Reaper. What? The Reaper? There's only one person who could have done that. The mastermind of the entire operation. Reaper himself. Yeah. Ah. So that means that the assassin exchange was all planned by the Reaper. Not at liberty to say anything about my British counterpart. You could. We have an idea who it could be. Anyway, the inspector accepted the Reaper's mission and dutifully infiltrated my cabin on the steamship. But it was all a trap designed to lead him to France and his own death. Oh, how awful. It was past 9 o'clock when I returned to my cabin from dining hall that evening. Didn't give me time to attack me. I choked him until he was lost consciousness. There was a guard outside the door, so I left it at that for the time being. Even the slightest noise might arouse a suspicion, so I bided my time, waiting for 20 minutes after 10 o'clock. I had intended to finish him by strangulation, but moments before I had the chance, he suddenly came around and went for me in a reckless move. Bang. I received this British style issued gun 16 years earlier, being a member of the judiciary as a visiting student. Why would you give a student a gun? Never imagined I'd use it for something like that. So the revolver belongs to you, does it? Then the victim was killed inside your cabin at the SS Cruise on this, which begs the question of why you arranged for his body to be discovered in a room in Fresno Street. The young judicial assistant over there has already answered that question. There's no way I could take the body up on deck and throw it over the side. It's precisely where all the crewmen were gathering for the evacuation drill. For a first-class cabin sentry's return, I took the corpse to the refrigeration room. And then right in Dunkirk, you concealed the body in the trunk in order to smuggle it past the police board. Where police? I needed to take steps if the police were to be convinced when the body was found in London. In that case, he must have known. He must have had intimate details of Inspector Gregson's intended schedule. Yes, my British counterpart sent me everything I needed to know. Inspector was due in Fresno Street at 5 o'clock that afternoon, in order to meet the man by the name of Huge Bone, from when he assumed whom he would take back to his police identification. Ah. I decided that man would be the perfect person to set up as a culprit. So I took a hackney carriage over to the body still in my trunk. It's been after we took this photograph from your hotel then. Yes, I wasn't expecting a welcoming committee. I was more than a little nervous. On Fresno Street, I spotted a young girl selling little firecrackers. Miss Venus, of course. I could see the candle trick there and then. So I donned a simple guise to approach the girl to buy enough firecrackers to replicate a gunshot. A sort of disguise. For some reason, the inspector had a bright red hairpiece for his own traveling case. So I put that on, though I suspect I drew more attention on myself than I would have otherwise. The hairpiece we found on the scene. The inspector had it ready for the Red-Headed League investigation. Only arrived at the room right around 5:15, so I quickly placed the body on the floor, moved the notice board, and set up the little candle trick. Raised the firecracker to go off a bang around 15 minutes later. So that Mr. Boone
would arrive at 5 would walk straight into a trap. Except at that last moment, I made a careless blunder. What was that? I imagine it was the bag of fish and chips. Ah. There I noticed it had fallen out of his overcoat when I moved the body to the refrigeration room. Put it back in his pocket the following morning, but... well, it seems that the warmth of the heated cabin had accelerated the decay of the fish. Anyway, that's... what are you doing? That's everything. All the sordid details of what I did. Yep, the sand is gone since he broke it. I've heard enough. We arrived at the truth about the murder of one of our country's most capable and respected police inspectors. The witness will be tried in the coming days. For a crime of such a vile nature, you can expect the most severe penalty. An exchange of assassins, what a foolhardy idea. Mr. Jikoku, one last detail. Who was your counterpart in Britain? Who was the mastermind behind the assassin exchange? Nothing you'll say now can make any matters any worse for you. Just tell us. Enough! I already told you that I cannot say. Even though as things stand, you very well never set foot in your homeland again. What are you waiting for? Can we get this over with now? It's finished, all of it. I'm finished. It has to be him. He has to be the fucking counterpart. Then, in the name of Her Majesty the Queen, I now pronounce the findings of this court. This man before us is admitted to the willful murder of Tobias Gregson. We still haven't gotten to this evidence yet. So, we're not done yet. So Shiro Jikoku is the opinion of the court that you should be found guilty. May I remind all those present that the strictest confidentially demanded by this closed circuit court. It's like, okay, but he wasn't the one on trial. Moments ago, Mr. Jikoku signed a written confession, admitting to the murder of Inspector Gregson and the subsequent conveyance of the body. In short, the defendant's innocence has therefore been established beyond doubt. Oh, wonderful. Well done, Mr. Naruto. Yes, thank you. Something wrong? I'm just a little troubled by his silence. The true identity of the Reaper of the Baylor and his extraordinary assassin exchange. We do remain in the dark about these mysteries. However, insofar as the indictment brought against the defendant in the trial, we have reached a conclusion. I have every intention of pursuing both mysteries as a prosecutor. As you wish. As you wish. Now for the formal adjudication. I hereby declare the defendant Baron Van Zieks.
Yeah, it's not over yet. Prosecution calls for adjudication to be deferred.
Counsel?
The accused innocence hasn't been fully established at all. He just said he didn't fucking kill the goddamn person. Therefore, it would be wrong to deliver a verdict at this time. That is the prosecution's unwavering position. What? But the Judge Chikoku has already confessed. And already been found guilty, too. Nevertheless, Baron Van Zieks has committed the crimes for which he must be punished. With what evidence?
Well, we appear you have information that the court needs to hear, Prosecutor Sagi.
Certainly, the murder of the Inspector Gregson was actually carried out by Seishiro Jikoku. It's clear the witness had testimony that he had coerced into complying with his plot. The sickening, merciless assassin exchange. That may be true, but what I want to know is who coerced Jikoku? Who pulled the strings? The victim went to France, having been ordered on a mission for Reaper only be murdered. In other words, the mastermind behind the assassination changes someone in a position to give such order. Such as, quote-unquote, our judge right now. As we have already established, the Reaper himself, well, certainly would appear to follow. You still have no evidence to support it. The prosecution hereby firmly accuses the man in the dock, Baron Van Zieks, of being the Reaper of the Bailey. And furthermore, you still have going to prove his guilt beyond all reasonable doubt. What? Nani? Hey, look, the stand is back.
Order in ahead. Futurama. The Reaper of the Bailey is a long-standing mystery, Consul. We're suggesting you have some new information with which to build a case that you only waited till now to share.
Scotland Yard has already investigated Lord Van Zieks very thoroughly in that regard. They found no evidence whatsoever to substantiate the claim that he was the Reaper. Perhaps, but certain circumstances have changed now. Have they? What do you mean? It's already been established that the assassination exchange was negotiated by Jikoku and by the Reaper himself, which means we now have a new line of questioning by it, which will identify conclusively the man's identity. That's the prosecution's intention here. I must say I'm surprised by quite how tenacious you appear to want to besmirch my name. You're guilty of an unforgivable crime, Lord Van Zieks. And I will bring you to justice for it, whatever it takes. Explains Cosmo Sans before. You'll stop at nothing to finish what Lord Van Zieks unwillingly started 10 years ago. Where's your proof, Asagi? ...
Well, it's still extremely irregular. I will on this occasion grant the prosecution further opportunity to witness testimony. The defendant will disclose any and all involvement he had with the Reaper in the assassin exchange.
And I had none.
I hereby declare this court to be in session for a supplementary hearing.
Pray forgive my turn a blind eye to discourtesy by his violent unremitting accusation. Hasn't soured the contents of my hollow chalice. Lord Van Zieks? I first had to suffer the pseudonym of the Reaper 10 years ago now. Ever since that time, I endured the weight of implied guilt and gone with it. So I welcome the chance to testify now and crush those allegations once and for all. Good. Then let justice decide how Lord Van seeks that the prosecution seeks to build a case, calling the accuser to stand as a primary witness. And they may answer the accusation brought by the prosecution that he is the Reaper of the Bailey.
What says the defense?
Putting the defendant in the witness stand can be extremely dangerous. Again, he was already once. Kazuma-sama is so emotional at the moment, he's not thinking logically. You're right that he's not himself, but I knew they would be like this. Came here today determined to face him through whatever he might arise, as a lawyer and as a friend, his friend. And that is what we must do. Defense has no objection, my lord.
Very well. Defendant, you will take the witness stand and give formal testimony on the subject of your involvement with the Reaper and the assassin exchange.
As you wish, my lord. Do you have a throat lozenge?
Reaper and assassin exchange.
I never taken the life of another, nor have I instructed another to kill. I've been investigating the truth behind the Reaper for years, and I was aware of Gregson's involvement. That's the reason why I went to Fresno Street that day and how I came to discover the body. The point is, no common thread exists between myself, Gregson, and Dr. Wilson.
Dr. Wilson? Huh?
Clearly, therefore, there is no reason to suspect me behind this assassin exchange.
So you deny all accusations by the prosecution, both that you are the Reaper of the Bailey and that you mastermind the assassin exchange.
And why would he fucking do that? I acknowledge that the public at large believe me to be the Reaper. However, that's a fallacy, which I alone am in a position of forswear. Naturally, the prosecution believes the testimony just given by the accused is untrue.
You're looking at Hodo? Yes.
Let me ask you, why are you here? What really brings you to this courtroom?
So I'm here to uncover the truth.
Even if the truth proves your client to be guilty. From my experience in this courtroom, I've come to realize something. The truth can't be hidden. Sooner or later, it will come out. So it's always my intention to work with my client in pursuit of the truth. I want to remind you what you just said.
Enough dilatory chatter. Counsel for the defense, proceed with the cross-examination of the witness.
Yes, my lord. Exactly what you're thinking, Kazuma. And then you're just waiting to point it out. The contradiction you convinced lies somewhere within this man's testimony. The Reaper and the Assassination Program. Exchange Program. I have never taken the life of another, nor have I instructed another to kill. So you're now what the general public refer to as the infamous Reaper of the Bailey. Exactly. I don't imagine for a moment that the court will be satisfied with a one-word answer for this. I realize that. If you're intending to comment on every sentence, this will take a while, Kazuma. Don't you find it disturbing, though, that one by one the defendants who've been acquitted after your unsuccessful prosecution were killed? Let me answer that question by posing another. If one by one the defendants who have been acquitted after your successful defense were killed, would you find that disturbing? Disturbing? I couldn't possibly say how that would make me feel in one word answer like that. Exactly. Well, that told me. But even though I'm not the Reaper, that doesn't mean I ignored all the hearsay.
I've been investigating the truth behind the Reaper for years, and I was aware of Gregson's involvement.
Truth is, probably Gregson was just investigating himself. You say for years, but how long exactly?
Since the very first time the Reaper's influence was felt in this country. 10 years ago now.
Your investigations led you to somehow to Inspector Gregson, you're saying?
I didn't want to believe it. He was a personal acquaintance. We worked on cases together in the past.
Your friend even?
I felt like a betrayal, but I demanded permission to search his office at the yard without his knowledge.
Which is where you found the secret notebook, is it?
When I first saw the location, he noted only as a Groose, the appointment at 5 p.m. on the 31st. Though I didn't know the significance of the details at the time.
So now we're on the nub of the matter.
As it turns out, the significance for me, personally, was very unfortunate. That's the reason why I went to Fresno Street that day and how I came to discover the body.
Now, why did you go to that specific location?
I thought if it was the Reaper's headquarters, then by turning up there at 5 o'clock, I would catch whoever was involved. Red-handed. Sadly, all that awaited me was the inspector's corpse.
Yes, even though it wasn't designed for you, you walked straight into the trap set by Jikoku.
Exactly. Jikoku had intended to implicate Huge Bone. But happily for me, I arrived at the scene first.
Huh, a ridiculously careless blunder. Move on to just throwing insults then. I see then, Cosmo.
Think what you will. It doesn't change the truth. The point is, no common thread exists between me, myself, Dr. Gregson, and Dr. Wilson.
Why are you mentioning Wilson? There is a link between you and Gregson, though.
Of course, we're close acquaintances. Worked in numerous cases together. Considered a man to be a mentor of sorts. He taught me a number of important lessons.
You did? Such as what?
Where to buy good fish and chips, and such like.
Well, that is what he is. Well, that was convincing.
Dr. Wilson was a coroner, of course, but that was some time in the past. And in any case, I understand it was several years ago that he was invited to work at a Japanese university.
That's right, he was a visiting professor at the Imperial Yume University in Tokyo.
It should be unambiguously clear then that no link exists between myself and him. In other words, I had no motive to sending an assassin across the oceans to kill a man.
Sounds plausible enough, and I want to believe it. But something about it just doesn't quite sit right with me.
Clearly, therefore, there's no reason to suspect me of being an assassin in change.
Certain as it stands, there's no evidence to suggest that you concocted the scheme. But as it stands, we have only the accused's insistence of his innocence, and you still have no proof of his guilt. Sorry? Perhaps there is some reason that you explain why you masterminded the assassin to change. The reason will be established later in these proceedings. That the accused's claim of the testimony was involved in mounted perjury. Well, yes, that's true, but...
Clearly, Kazuma-sama didn't identify the reason to use it to make his case.
If we don't identify something first, he'll gain the advantage. This could be dangerous.
There's convincing testimony by Lord Van Zeeks. Certainly, with no apparent connection between the three men, there is no way to establish a motive. Testimony seems unassailable as far as I can see. Oh dear me, what a bleak expression. I agree, there doesn't appear to be any particular link between them, at first glance. But the inclusion of one other person must be overthinking it, surely. Another person, Mr. Naruhodo? Think back to all the information we've gleaned so far. Alright, then I'll review my notes in the case after all the evidence of court record. Could it be that Lord Van Zeeks has something to hide after all? Yeah. Nothing with Gregson and Wilson. But maybe this photograph is going to be see a little question for you. I think, my lord. No comment thread between himself, but with another person added. There's a link, supposedly. Not the notice board. What about Graves and Mikotaba? I mean, him and Mikotaba, which had the link. Yeah, it's a kind of brazen jump to go to the Asagi papers. No common thread exists between them, huh? I think I'm overthinking it. Alright, so... Gregson and Wilson. I don't think it's this. No. No common thread exists between him and Wilson. What about the other autopsy? Ah, yeah, the other autopsy. You do have a link. What is this? An autopsy report? Wait, this is 10 years old. It's an autopsy of Lord Clint Van Zeeks. What? My brother's autopsy report.
I'm pleased to see that the defense doesn't intend to run from the undeniable truth. What undeniable truth?
Order in the court. Futurama never let it die.
Order in the court. Futurama never let it die. Wait, what is this, an autopsy report? Wait, this is 10 years old. The autopsy of Lord Clint Van Zeeks. Right, son. What reason do you have for presenting a 10-year-old autopsy report here, Consul? This is the autopsy report that Professor's final victim. It's an a link between Inspector Gregson, Dr. Wilson, and the defendant.
Not that accursed name again, the Professor.
I personally researched all the court records relating to that case. Now, at the time, the autopsy was considered sacrilege to the victim's soul. And for the member of the aristocracy like Clint Van Zeeks, it was unthinkable. But someone implored that the powers be allowed us to go ahead, Inspector Gregson. He declared that he was certain that he could obtain conclusive proof of the procedure. And it was Dr. Wilson who conducted the autopsy. His signature is clearly visible on the document. As promised by Gregson,
the autopsy did indeed produce evidence. Evidence that conclusively proved Genshin Asagi was guilty of the murders. In my brother's dying moments, he mustered all of his remaining strength to leave a final vital clue behind.
Indeed. That was the key to indicting the professor for his crimes as conclusive evidence that convicted him. It established Lord Van Zeeks here, and it enabled Lord Van Zeeks to avenge his brother's senseless death. What a marvelous victory in court. Marvelous victory, was it? Wonder if that's really true.
What?
Could it be the same as if it turned out that a key piece of evidence in question was in fact fabricated? The inspector, the coroner, and the prosecutor all colluded together to cast an innocent Japanese man as a mass murderer and send him to his death. That's your take on this.
That's outrageous.
And now, 10 years later, for some reason the secret that has been threatened and needs protecting. That's why the inspector and the coroner had to be silenced, isn't it? By someone in the power in Japan and Britain, using the two killers recruited through the assassin exchange. You still are not proving it was him. You still have no physical evidence.
Order at once.
10 years ago, my father was convicted in this very courtroom as a mass murderer to be sentenced to death. But it was a sham, and I assured myself that I'd prove it. Which is why I had to come to Britain. Whatever the cost.
You have to forgive me if I feel compelled to toast this vengeful Nipponese tenacity for a purpose here. However, he who fails to quash his emotions in the courtroom has failed as a lawyer.
Come on, Kazuma. You know that this won't wash. You're claiming your father was misrepresented in the trial that took place a whole decade ago. You must see that without evidence, there's nothing more than a wild accusation. As it happens, I have evidence. What? Nani? Sakura's heard I crossed the Channel of France to Gregson on the 31st, in the pretense of being an assassin and recruited to kill Shishiro Jikoku. My intentions were true, or to make the inspector tell me the truth. What truth?
What truth?
Truth about the evidence. He acknowledged what I had already deduced. There was a closely guarded secret that went on in the autopsy room 10 years ago.
What? A secret? I know nothing of any secret.
While I waited for my supposed mark to in Jikoku's cabin, drew my clan's illustrious sword Karma before the inspector's eyes. I very quickly understood what my true motive was.
Right, I see.
So you're the Sagi lad, are you? And what, you come to cut me down with that thing, is that it? That will very much depend on the answers you give me for my questions. I don't know what really happened 10 years ago. The truth, that's all. Before we get into it, let me make one thing clear. I still believe your father was the professor. There's no doubt in my mind. But unfortunately back then, we didn't have the evidence to make the crime stick. So you admit it then? I was used in my father's trial was fabricated? It was for the good of the country. Anyway, I was just following orders. Orders? What exactly did you do? Speak. Not saying you never would. Even if your life depends on it. That's right. Even then. So that's when the tip of the sword broke. Oh, Kazuma-sama. If the results of Clint Van Zeek's autopsy were fabricated, then investigating officer Gregson and the lead coroner Wilson must have known about it. They could only have been ordered to pervert the course of justice in that way by one man. Manning the case for the prosecution, Baron Van Zeek's. Really? In other words, the defendant didn't have cause to organize the exchange of assassins. Exactly. And was established earlier. It had to have been the Reaper himself who liaised between Jikoku and Japan to arrange the exchange. Ah. So it follows that the Reaper's true identity can only be that of the man who stands accused in the courtroom today, Baron Van Zeek's. Like, Kazuma-sagi. What? Well, you just told the court. Are you absolutely certain of your facts? That Gregson really fabricated evidence for a trial 10 years ago. I heard it with my own ears. Shameful, that's a shameful admission. Yet you don't have any proof because he's dead. In that case, I know. The name of the Reaper. What? What? Lord Van Zeek's? I gave no such orders. I know that for certain. Which narrows down the remaining possibilities to one. Lord Van Zeek's isn't behind all of this? Then yes, there is only one person who could have done something like that. Believe I know who it is too. You? Just that Fiona name was gonna come up. True identity of the infamous Reaper of the Bailey is... Well, who was the other person who had power at that time? I want to say it's him. Pretty sure it's not Gregson. He even asked for his own murder. It's not them. Not him. He's not the fucking Reaper. She's too young to be the fucking Reaper. Unlikely to be these two fucks. And it's really unlikely to be her. Only one person with the motivation to do this. The one person who could have arranged the assassinate exchange program manipulated the autopsy results is Chief Lord Justice himself, Lord Male Strongheart. What? Lord Strongheart? Yes, it's true that 10 years ago the defendant handled the prosecution for the professor in the court, but he only took it after his brother, Lord Clint Van Zeeks, had been killed. Yep, he's the counterpart. I can only assume that this is the most inappropriate joke in British judicial history. Well, Lord Van Zeeks?
10 years ago, I was very new to my profession, but I had a burning desire to avenge my brother's death, so I pleaded for control of the case. The investigation to the point, the supplication to the Lord to allow my brother's corpse to be examined, all the evidence that I was given, the autopsy reports, it all came from you.
And let's not forget, he was also the one that was chief prosecutor or whatever.
I spent my life since then believing it was in your debt for the way you stood aside and let me handle the trial.
Yeah, like I said, it's the only one that makes sense. Plus, he's the one who started the rumor, supposedly.
But I see now, I was very much mistaken.
It was a hugely influential force that caused the inspector and the coroner to break the law 10 years ago, and that same force still felt a decade later on the other side of the world by Seishiro Jikoku. Lord Strongheart, everything falls into place when we recognize that you are the Reaper of the Bailey.
The court awaits your response, my lord. This may very well go down in British judicial history, but I assure you, it is no joke. Consider this a formal accusal by the defense.
It doesn't warrant a response. Formal accusal? Don't be absurd. The defense's claims are utter nonsense. A wild fantasy at best. You're not gonna defend yourself? You claim that there was some wrongdoing of Lord Clint Van Zeek's autopsy. That's utterly untrue. But I heard from Gregson's own lip, and he admitted to it. And where's your evidence? Exactly. What? Gregson's dead now, unless you were able to think of summoning a ghost to the stand. You mean to say... I forget how the system works in your little backwater country. But of course the British Empire, without evidence, there is no case. There's no intention of entertaining some wild fantasy that can't possibly substantiate anyone or anything. Ah.
Order in the court. Futurama, never let it die. Following Inspector Gregson's murder and in light of Dr. Wilson's death as well. There's really no one left to testify about the events of 10 years ago. Is there? So that was the real purpose of the assassin exchange. The court has no business raking the coals of the case that was concluded a decade ago. The accusal brought before the prosecution and defense is categorically denied. Take it there are no objections. Kazuma more or less waited his whole life for this moment.
Is there really nothing else we can do now? So there, I mean, we can pursue it in the truth of what happened all those years ago. Well, there was someone who could testify about Clint Van Zeek's autopsy. Ah, no. Damn it. Mr. Loves to cover his tracks. As far as dispatching an assassin all the way to Japan to ensure Wilson's silence, and Dr. Sai won't say anything against Strongheart. Ryosuke, please. Sorry, Kazuma. Mr. Naruto. Is there someone rather important whom you've overlooked? Our silence is beautifully eloquent. Take it we've reached the end of the debate. If there is someone. Let the matter be closed for good. Doesn't matter which choice. There is someone. Actually, there is one person. One person who can still testify about that autopsy. Ah, yes, the daughter. Don't be ridiculous, there's no one left. Who, Ryosuke, who? Tell me. Kazuma, Please, this trial can't end. Not yet. I'm not doing this for you. Doing it for the truth. The person in the defense would like to call to the stand to testify about the autopsy of Lord Clint Van Zeeks. Her daughter, Bernard. What? I want to know why. I wonder why you're proposing to call such a witness with the look of utter desperation on your face. In other words, you're wide on the mark, Ryosuke. Very wide. Thanks, don't spare me my feelings or anything. Given the contemptible allegations you made, Consul, I won't be letting that blunder pass unpunished. Someone else pressed out the outside report. Sorry about... Have you forgotten? Oh, right. She was present, though. She was recounted, but she wasn't present. She wasn't present. Someone else was. Daddy dearest. Heaven help us. Another Japanese. An expert in forensic medicine, my lord. Professor Yuji Mikotaba, 16 years ago. He came to London with Shishiro Jikoku and Genshin Asagi as a visiting student. What could his testimony possibly tell us? Professor Mikotaba was the primary assistant during the autopsy in question. He was also the person who actually penned the report. Incorrect. The autopsy was carried out by the coroner, Dr. Wilson. The report carries his signature. He was also the primary assistant's duty to keep a written record of the procedure, coroner work during the procedure. In actual fact, the coroner merely read over the report and at the end signed it. In other words, the Professor Mikotaba witnessed the entire autopsy from start to finish. Defensive Master Professor Mikotaba be summoned as a witness in a matter of urgency. What really happened in the autopsy lab 10 years ago? Something that only he can tell us. The defense's demand is denied. What? Professor Mikotaba is in London this very moment. He can be summoned within standing minutes. No, of course he's not going to agree to it. Stronger has no intention of summoning anyone who knows. Yeah. Trumpian logic. We don't want any evidence or testimony or speak about protecting himself. Prosecutor Asagi, let me refresh your memory as you have forgotten your prosecution stance. Only minutes ago you accused the defendant of being the Reaper and the mastermind behind the assassin exchange. I did, yes. So present your evidence for those claims and make your case complete. This time I don't have the requisite evidence. That's exactly all we need: witness testimony. The professor's place is closed. There are no clues in the distant past that will bolster your argument today. Pray to say, Prosecutor Asagi, that you appear to be possessed of the spirit of your late homicidal father. Now, as I have stated earlier, this court has already reached a conclusion with respect to the matter at hand. Inspector Gregson was murdered by a Japanese Supreme Court Judge, Jishiro Chikoku. For any hidden circumstance that may exist, it will be investigated in due course with proper authorities. We all know what will happen. That would give the mastermind the whole venture time to cover his tracks again.
By which you mean me?
Your punishment for this contemptible behavior will be decided at a later date. As for you, Prosecutor Asagi, you will be remanded in the following proceedings. Willingly, I trust, since you gave your word. This futile game of revenge is over, young Master Asagi. I'm sure he happens to be in the audience too.
That'll be all. I hereby declare this trial to be over.
Court is Mikotaba, probably. Yes, he was in the stand-up. Well, I say Hildebrand. Mr. Sholmes.
This is no place for an amateur detection, Mr. Sholmes. May I remind you that these proceedings are closed to the general public. You will have to leave the courtroom at once.
Mr. Sholmes was mental in the apprehension of Shishiro Jikoku before he fled from Europe. Court should hear what he has to say. Mr. Lord Man Strongheart, it's imperative that you refrain from bringing this trial to end at this stage.
Is there really? Why would you believe? Would that be?
You need to recall your own words in the opening of the trial to answer that question, if I may. You will stop on nothing to uncover the whole truth behind these disturbing findings. Surely it can't be. And the shock of being accused of being the Reaper yourself has erased that from your memory, can it?
The whole truth, sir, has already been uncovered.
It seems like you have a great many important members of the judiciary present here today. I would put it to you, my dear fellows, should the trial end at this juncture? After all, why have you been invited here to attend? To not all in at the provocations of your superiors? Provocations of your superiors? Trial by your peers.
Order! Order in the court! Order in the head! Futurama!
It seems that we still stand before a door that leads to a new era of legal practices. The door is ajar. Let's emerge in the shadow of the Reaper's decade-long ascendancy. For you and you alone, my dear fellows. You have the power to push this door open now.
The auditors and galley have no rights to express an opinion in this court. Silence.
He's right. The judge has absolute authority here. Yes, if he calls the trial to an end, it must end. What will it really do? Since dark things occur behind the scenes. Dark things indeed. A single person here present who can honestly make sense of this. But what's... Trial should go on. Summon the witness. Oh, he's right. We need to clear this up before the Japanese fellow is ran into custody. My lord, you must assure the president that you will go out and cover the whole truth here. Vindicate yourself of this outlandish accusation. The truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth. It's the very foundation of British law. A toast to my dependable colleagues in the gallery. On with the trial. On with the trial. Testify. 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 Oh, my lord. Well, my lord. You heard the voice of the British justice. I take it. Testify. Testify. I think you'll find it rather awkward to silence.
or we'll recess briefly. I have no intention of shirking on these allegations. Bailiff, arrange for a subpoena for the witness at once. As soon as the gentleman arrives in the courthouse, shall reconvene.
A recess won't be necessary, my lord.
Pardon?
Mikutama is a close friend of mine. He's accompanied me today and is waiting in the antechamber as we speak. I do believe he is enjoying a little trip down memory lane, in fact. What, Professor Mikutama is here in the courthouse? Mr. Sholmes, you didn't know this would happen, did you? My dear fellows, there's no one in a better position to answer that question than you, surely. I wasn't just asking for the fun of it, you know.
Well, I must thank you for your assistance in this matter, Mr. Sholmes. However, get the fuck out of my courtroom. You have no further use here. Kindly leave the courtroom at once.
But of course, in truth, I find myself rather busy now as a recent result of these developments. Mr. Naruhodo. Yes? Because you have Virus's little lucky charm with you.
Absolutely.
Still in my pocket. Just send her regards and a reminder. She sends a regard and a reminder. Find yourself at a dead end, the ears are at your disposal. Just one tug, if you please. Oh, of course. Again.
In that case, the trial will resume without delay. Bailiff, show the witness to the stand.
So it's Lord Strongheart. He's the Reaper of the Bailey. Where exactly is this trial going to take me, I wonder? I guess how deep is I'm about to be plunged into the blackness of the abyss. Well, I'm ready. Ready to head into the heart of the maelstrom and confront the horrors of what that tries to drown me. Yep, that's probably as far as we can. We can play for a little while longer, but. Alright, so. I don't have to be up early. I did take a nap. My brother's been up for a while, so. Fuck it. I say we continue. Hey, she's here too. Why is she standing sideways? So, witness, please state your name and occupation for the court. Eugene Mikutama, lecturer in forensic medicine and the Imperial University in Tokyo, Japan. And Professor Mikutama, your young lady beside you is... And this is Dr. Maria Gori, Scotland Yard's practicing coroner. The daughter of Dr. Sive, if I understand it. Yes, Dr. Sive. Afraid I can't tell you why she's here. She just appeared.
You summoned a strange Japanese man as a witness to that autopsy. But you didn't summon Mama. That makes no sense. She was there too. She doesn't want to speak. That's about the size of it. I've had her eyes boring to the side of my cheek constantly. Whilst I was in the antechamber too. Poor man. The idea is making me shudder. Her relations about Dr. Sive came to life under some days ago that defied the reputation of the entire judiciary. She was therefore deemed unfit to appear as a witness in today's proceedings. Ministry of Justice's decision on that is final, i.e. your decision. Hell, we wouldn't want any more perjury to be committed, would we? The Ministry of Justice. Some questionable strings had to be pulled, I think. What arm are you? Dr. Mikotaba. But I'm certainly never expected to meet you under these circumstances. Yes, it's been a while, Lord Strongheart. The prosecution understands that you were a visiting student of forensic science in London until 10 years ago. That's right, I studied under Dr. Wilson at St. Sinner's. Saint Sinner. You were present at the autopsy of my brother, Lord Clint Van Zeeks? I was, yes. I assisted Dr. Wilson in the entire procedure. Tis. Mama is far more skilled than any Japanese man. No, Dr. Wilson asked me to be his primary assistant on the occasion. And his autopsy report is actually penned by you, I believe. Yes, I noted all the doctor's findings when we were done, or he read through the document and signed it. Poor Mama, as secondary assistant, she wouldn't have had such a good view of the innards. So, Professor, do you remember Inspector Gregson? Yes, of course. Wasn't for his assistance, Lord Van Zeek's autopsy would never have happened. But he was absolutely convinced that it would reveal decisive evidence against Genshin, you see. So Lord Stronger had to entreat the nobility to allow it to take place. Do correct me if I'm wrong, my lord. It was as a result of that autopsy that mass murderer was apprehended and justice was done. Gregson admitted it before he was killed. He admitted that the results of the autopsy were fabricated, which we have no proof of. You were there at that time, so you must testify. You have any obligation to tell the truth about what really went on. Absolutely. That's precisely why I'm here. And that is why I'm here too. Very well done. You will give your formal testimony now, witness. Before we begin, a word of warning. Oh? You will say truthfully and accurately what you saw and what you heard before at the time. I wouldn't dream of doing otherwise, my lord. The moment your testimony verges on supposition, I will expel you from my courtroom. Remember that. The autopsy of Clint Van Zeeks. From my own observations, I couldn't say that there was anything indication that the autopsy results had been fabricated. They resulted from a wound made on a Western-style sword transfixing the heart. Though I found this a little strange. There was no other signs of internal injury. Nothing questionable at all. Just a beautiful but dangerous piece of evidence removed from this man's stomach. Presumed to have been swallowed by the victim as a way of posthumously identifying his assailant. Really now? No indication. Nothing aside just fabrication. What's with that? Are you certain of that? Well, nothing that could be positively identified as such, much less swear to in testimony. Well, that clears up things nicely. The only fabrication here, Asagi, has come from you. What? You claim the inspector confessed before his death, but that was just the fabrication. No, he fully acknowledged it. He swore he did. Freely, with the tip of the sword in his throat, the man was clearly at his wits' end. The court will give no credence to his confession that has uttered obvious desperation. Quite simply, there was nothing questionable about the investigation of Lord Clint Van Zeke's death. The testimony we have, without question, uncovered the whole truth of the matter. Cross-examination. If I may, my lord. There was one certain something questionable about it, and it was the whole truth read, as the whole truth does elude us, I feel. I beg your pardon? Well, you're obviously aware of the facts of the case. All four of the professor's previous victims, that with enormous beast was set upon them that ripped out their throats. Oh, such horrifying crimes. But curiously, the killer's last victim, Lord Clint Van Zeeks, suffered a different fate. Yes, you're right. He was stabbed through the heart with a sword. That's enough. Believe I warned you about this, witness. Promise to retain or curtail your testimony as soon as it entered the realms of supposition and speculation. That's not speculation. Huh. Very well, my lord. In that case, the defense will pursue a conclusion to this during the cross-examination. What? What? I have the right to cross-examine every witness after testimony. And I will fully intend to exercise that right. Yosuke? Afraid that even the presiding judge has no authority to contravene the letter of the law, as I'm sure every member of the judiciary present in the gallery would agree. Oh. Testify. Very well. You may begin, counsel. However, the moment your argument strays from the established facts, I will not hesitate to bring the cross-examination to an end. Proceed with caution. Yes, my lord. Prosecutor Clint Van Zeeks. From my observations, I couldn't say there was any indication of the autopsies having been fabricated. I'm glad I don't have a voice for him. You couldn't say? No, sadly not. But then you couldn't say it was an indication either. Wasn't any indication either. No, true, I couldn't. I was at Dr. Wilson's side as he performed the procedure, recording as what he did. But at all times, of course, he instructed me to fetch instruments and such like. Whilst I was away from the operating table, obviously I couldn't miss something. At those times, was there a secondary assistant doing? Following the Japanese man's orders to adjust the lighting or passive implements. That doesn't mean Mama was a vital part of the team. Wasn't a vital part of the team. Quite, yes. So you were kind of refrain from staring at my cheek like that. First thing I would think. Was there nothing at all that seemed out of place to you? Well, yes, there was, a matter of fact. That resulted from a wound made from Western style sword transfixing the heart. I found that a little strange. Not Eastern, Western style. That's just nobility. All the previous 4 killings attributed to the professor. The victims were killed by an enormous dog, I believe. Their throats were well mauled. Correct, and yet Lord Van Zeeks was stabbed. Do you mean to say the Clint Van Zeeks may not have been the one of the professor's victims? There's no basis on which to doubt the findings of the investigation carried out at the time. But Ganeshino Saga confessed to all his crimes upon his arrest. He admitted to having taken the lives of 5 members of the aristocracy. And the proof of that is where?
Yet the beast used to carry out the killings was never identified. No evidence was found to suggest that Genshin had ever kept a dog.
A true hound of hell. A true hound of hell.
There were no signs of internal injury. Nothing questionable at all. But, you weren't actually present at the autopsy yourself, were you, Dr. Gory? Does it matter? Well, I just wonder how useful your testimony can be in that case, really. I mean, it would be different if your mother, Dr. Sive, were in the stand, but... Read all the paperwork about the case. Mama told me a story countless times. Statement just made exactly what was written in the autopsy report. They confirmed that myself at the time. It's true. Besides the stab wound, there was no other signs of internal trauma. I see. Mama told me all about it. Oh? She said there was nothing unknown internally. But they did find an amazing piece of evidence. Something unbelievable. Unbelievable? What do you mean? Come on, Dr. Gory. What was it? We don't know what it was, what they found. We really don't. It was just a beautiful but dangerous piece of evidence removed from the man's stomach. We still don't know what the fuck it was. They've always alluded to it, but they never clue what it was. What exactly was it, though? What does a beautiful but dangerous mean? Well, it was sparkly and round with a hole. As if it might slip over a finger, perhaps. A ring. It was a ring, belonging to Genshin Asagi. My father's ring, inside the victim's stomach. At the time, Genshin wore a large ring with the Digitus Quartus on his left hand, the 4 for a ring finger. So it was some sort of keepsake. Father left Japan for London 16 years ago. I was 8 years old. Remember that ring? Do you do? Father's possessions were sent to our family home at the time of death, but the ring wasn't among them. Obviously not. It was a key piece of evidence. It remains under lock and key under the storehouses in Scotland Yard to this day. After the autopsy, Genshin was summoned by the police to check the presence of his ring. It wasn't on his hand, of course. Moreover, there were deep abrasions on his finger where it had been pulled off. They arrested the man then and there, right before my eyes. How could they? I brought the ring along with me today. Oh, did you? What? That's a weird-ass ring. Here it is, a bit dusty from years in the stores. Good gracious, yes, that's it. Haven't seen that in 10 long years. And it was found inside the victim's stomach? Yes, I'm afraid so. Yes, a day, Professor Mikotaba. Should I read something into that? Well, it's just thinking back now. I didn't actually witness the moment it was extracted from the victim's body. Oh my, really? That precise moment, Dr. Wilson had asked me to fetch a new scalpel, you see. Dr. Gory, the removal of historical evidence from the stores requires my consent, does it not? Who cares? However, it came to be here, Tor cannot deny this crucial piece of evidence today's finding. Very well, you may submit it. Mr. Asagi's ring has been there. Family call.
Hold it!
Alright, I'll hand out the phone call for a moment. So there's no sign of internal injury. Nothing questionable, but this ring, very sharp ass ring. So that's suspicious right here. The recorder here has heard that the ring was extracted from the victim's stomach, but you didn't actually see it being removed. Did you, Professor Mikotaba? That's right. As I said in my testimony before, the moment I was fetching a replacement scalpel for that Dr. Wilson requested. In other words, you can't neither confirm nor deny whether this ring was in fact really came from the victim's stomach or not.
What are you suggesting, Counsel?
The ring was never in the victim's stomach to begin with. And entirely feasible that Dr. Wilson fabricated the detail about the autopsy. What are you saying? Dr. Wilson was in possession of the ring in advance, after it was somehow stolen from Mr. Asagi. As he produced it during the procedure, pretending to find it then and there in the victim's stomach. Suppositions at best. What possible evidence do you have to support such a rash claim? My finger. This evidence, right here, the autopsy report. That's the autopsy report from 10 years ago.
It's explicit in our report, Counsel. Other than the ring, nothing unusual was noted internally. So I'm not sure how you intend to prove your point.
You've already done it for me, my lord. A lack of internal injury says it all.
What?
To swallow a ring of this size would require considerable effort and determination. And in addition to its size, there are sharp claws around the gemstone to contend with. Look at my finger. My brother was a determined man, and on the brink of death, even more so, I'm sure. He would have stopped at nothing to ensure that the evil killer was brought to justice. But if it really swallowed that enormous ring, it's inconceivable that there was no traces of its passage down his throat that would have remained as internal trauma.
No!
And there you have arrived at the sticking point. That's precisely why I had my doubts in the findings myself 10 years ago. Then why didn't you say something at the time? I did. I still remember that conversation I had with Dr. Wilson in the laboratory that day. Look at this. This is a very curious thing to find in a man's stomach, wouldn't you say? But isn't it rather peculiar, Dr. Wilson?
What's that now, Mikotaba?
Well, if you swallow the ring to the size with those sharp claws as it has, surely you expect to see damage to the throat and esophagus, torn mucous membranes at the very best.
Dr. Mikotaba, may I remind you, that is a vastly more experience than you.
I'm terribly sorry. Can't think of plenty of ways to explain that no injuries were seen. No, let's say this. The victim would appear to have ingested an item as evidence to identify his assailant. Go ahead, write it down. So I was right. Dr. Wilson deliberately fabricated the results of the autopsy to implicate my father.
I'm disappointed, Counsel. Your argument is nothing more than speculation.
What?
Dr. Wilson was Britain's leading authority on forensic science and autopsy work. No scientific basis on which to doubt the man's expert opinion.
Pardon the interruption, my lord, but damage to the mucous membranes of the throat is easily identified, even in living subjects. Using a device called an endoscope, recently demonstrated in practice in use in France. I want one. The government can pay.
I don't think so. And Dr. Gorey, rest assured that your removal of the evidence from the stores without punishment will not go unnoticed.
We open up the dead to find the truth.
I beg your pardon?
But Mama, she chose to stitch her corpses up with all her secrets inside. That's wrong. Back to Corey. It looks as though she's chosen to walk a different path than her mama.
Yes, the ring.
What about the ring?
I've just remembered something. An earlier incident.
What incident?
The one I recounted to you before. About a memory I have. Of Genshin Asagi saving my life.
What? My father saved your life?
It was 10 years ago on that foggy night. Genshin and I were walking down some back streets at the late hour. All of a sudden...
Don't make a paper, you're coming with us.
All of our assailants were armed with pistols, their faces obscured with scarves.
Bang.
The next thing I knew, there was silence all around. Genshin lay on the cobbled street. Blood was seeping from his left hand. He shielded me. It was on the ring finger of his left hand that he used to wear that ring.
Ah, are you saying...
I always believed those thugs were after me. But now I'm starting to question if perhaps it wasn't the intended target after all.
Wait, but...
Genshin was arrested 2 days after the attack. And at a short interval, a slice of evidence needed to indict him was miraculously found.
You mean the ring was stolen from him? You think that's what the thugs were after that night? You pathetic coward. So you believe that you weren't involved?
What do you mean by that?
He's been telling you that from the fucking start.
It was you, wasn't it?
And it was you, wasn't it? You're the one who took it. You stole my father's ring. You set the whole thing up so you could paint him as a mass murderer and arrest Kazuma. No evidence. Open your eyes. Yunosuke, you must know deep down that truth can be completely obscured even when your judgment is only slightly clouded. But at that moment, you seem to be floundering through a dense fog. Is that why you were so intent on that should be present in this trial? To see you like this?
Well, this is an amusing spectacle. What a grandiose expression on your face, as if you were Lady Justice herself. It seems you've thoroughly convinced yourself that this is alleged fabrication of the autopsy results. So much so you're apparently blind to the blatant contradiction that was bore out of it.
What?
Though it's extremely hard to believe, let us imagine that it was some misconduct during the autopsy. If that were the case, why would Asagi not have disputed the findings in his trial?
Oh?
In a closed court hearing 10 years ago, the defendant never once denied the claims against him. Isn't that right, Lord Van Zieks? Yes, that's indeed correct. Upon hearing the verdict of guilty, he merely closed his eyes and quietly accepted the judgment. Actions of a man who has accepted responsibility for his deeds and has resigned to his fate.
But then...
Oh my, that is very strange. Saki did nothing to oppose the charges against him then.
They threatened his family, maybe?
That would surely mean that there was no fabricated evidence. An obvious conclusion that you once arrived at many minutes ago, Prosecutor Saki. Your twisted loyalty and clouded judgment are hampered in your ability to logical thought. Genshin Asagi's silence at his hearing can only mean one thing. That there is no fabrication of evidence during the autopsy
of his final victim 10 years ago. Unless we threatened his family. So the autopsy was above board. That'd be nothing to stop Laura Stronger from bringing his trial to an immediate conclusion. Pull the ears. Pull the ears. Thank you, Rinosuke. If it wasn't for your frank words just now, this trial may well have ended prematurely. Kazuma? What is the latest absurdity console? I think I could maybe finish the trial if there's no fourth part tonight, but definitely won't be able to get the platinum tonight.
This trial is going to take much longer than that. You may have to spend probably 4 or 5 in the morning just to be able to finish the case, even with that.
Because right now it's like the autopsy findings and that, so...
This is like, you just accuse them of being the Reaper, but there's still a lot more that goes on in this trial.
Yeah, because like right now they're just accusing him of, that supposedly that the autopsy is that, but like it's still not formally accusing him of anything.
Yeah, so it's like basically you can just brush it off because like.
In other words, your reasoning is perfectly sound, but for one giant hole. Beg your pardon? You claim my father's silence was due to the fact that there was no fabricated evidence. There's another possible explanation. You've overlooked the possibility that he held a reason for maintaining his silence. I think we haven't opened that new bag either, so...
Yeah, no one hasn't been opened.
Silence that would lead him to be convicted and send him to his death. If the autopsy results were an invention, there is no conceivable reason why the man wouldn't have protested.
There is one. Oh, those results were an invention, alright. There's no question of that. Or are you forgetting? The 2 people with a connection to the autopsy have been assassinated. If I am forced to grievances that I feel from my mind, I start to see you in a very different light. I think it's perhaps you who has been living a delusion all these 10 years.
Me?
Kawasama has created one last chance for us, Mr. Naruhodo. Can only show that there was a reason for his father's silence in his trial. I think even though he was innocent, that would be, like I said, to protect his family. That would be the only reason you could think of, right? We have the Asagi papers. Maybe they finally play part of some negotiation, perhaps?
Enough rhetoric. The court must be shown evidence.
What proof do you have that could possibly explain Asagi's silence? The Asagi papers. Let's go with that. This is the defense answer to that question. Nope. As I indicated before, but my patience for rhetoric is growing thin. You could have at least accompanied the penalty with an explanation of why the answer was wrong. If Kazuma-sama's father knew the evidence was being used to convict him was fabricated, why would he have said nothing in his trial? For me, I had to protest my innocence until I was blue in the face. So if you were right about the autopsy, there must be a strong reason for his silence. Well then, perhaps saying nothing has changed for some sort of clemency. Ah, that could be it. Now, Frederick. For clemency. What would explain his silence? What would be the silence? Midnight. Visible on the little ring finger. Recent scarlet ink stains. Yes. And that leads to the report. This is the defense answer to that question. So it's not the Asagi papers. Yet. What clemency could he have been afforded? Yeah, we just did that. Yeah, we just did that. Alright, so what is his reason? The ring? Did you drop it? It's okay, I'll fix it. They're playing with fish. The ink stain. We did present the write out that paper, right? Yeah, that's not it. Yeah, we already presented that twice, right? So, it's wrong. Let's keep doing that until we get it right. So what clemency? What's related to Genshin, then? Ah, this guy. No. Ah, yes, it is. It's true that Genshin Asagi's silence during his trial resulted in his conviction, but it didn't actually lead to his execution. On the contrary, it led to his escape. An escape that was only possible because he had been sentenced to death. I find it hard to believe my father would have negotiated in that way. The defense is correct. True. Fake execution, a falsification of a death certificate, and a jailbreak inside a coffin. Because such elaborate plan couldn't have been carried out by my father alone. He must have had the help of a collaborator from the judiciary. I have here dismissal notice of the chief warder who was working in a prison at the time. Notes read there are indications that the jailbreak was planned prior to the inmate's incarceration. In other words, there were suggestions of some sort of negotiation between Asagi and the British government. In exchange for his silence in court, he was given an assurance that he would be broken out of prison. Yeah, so that sort of clandestine agreement in place, I can imagine he would have kept very quiet. But further
than that, in fact. I would say the elaborate jailbreak of Mr. Sagi can be explained in no other way. Order! 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 First fabricated evidence, now a jailbreak conspiracy. Of course, because it's all intimately linked. The prosecution was to summon a new witness to the stand. Witnesses? People who could testify in a jailbreak that took place 10 years ago. Yeah. Governor Caden and the poor chief warder of the prison. I won't allow this trial to be turned into a farce to summon the governor of a prison after all these years. Oh, there won't be any trouble, my lord. What? Father? My dear friend may appear a little rattle-patty at times, but I can assure you he's extremely thorough. He wired both Barclay and the local prison earlier, and asked Governor Caden and Mr. Virgil to attend to the old Bailey as a matter of urgency. Mr. Sholmes did that? Are you telling me that? Both men are, unless I'm much mistaken. In the end, just waiting outside the courtroom at this very moment. More testimony. My lord, we must permit this trial to proceed as you declared at the onset. You promised that we would stop at nothing to cover the whole truth behind these disturbing proceedings. Very well. Bring in the witnesses. Make no mistake. I, too, would like nothing more than to lay this business to rest once and for all. The witnesses state their names and occupations for the court, please. Aye, Barry Karen, governor of the Barclay prison. Everyone calls me Gossip. I sell jaunty little tidbits to passerby as your other persona, if you don't mind. Oh, I do beg your pardon. Of course. My name's Daily Vigil. I used to be the chief warder at the Barclay prison. The reason you've been summoned here to court today is testified by the jailbreak of the so-called professor 10 years ago. Gosh, the professor! Where have you been doing this for? Decade ago. And the conclusion was that there wasn't anything untoward that happened. A convict escaped from your prison, Governor. Hard you go out, nothing untoward. Ah, well, Tom Comet's death certificate was somehow falsified that he was allegedly executed. He was given a prison inside his own coffin, a plan that, of that complexity, could never have been carried out without the help of somebody influence inside the prison. Communicator, don't you imagine that the passage of time would afford you any protection? Turns out that you were involved in the plot to break out Mr. Sagi out of your prison. Then the consequences will be very serious. In likelihood, a capital punishment. Gads, hold on there, laddie. All I did was... Witness? Governor Caden? Aye, sir. You have a critical role to play in this public safety of our country, a greatest responsibility to shoulder. Significance of your testimony in court cannot be understated. Therefore, think carefully before you speak. And Prosecutor Sagi, if you threaten the witness again, you'll be held in contempt of court. My apologies, my lord. Just disputing the fact that the intricate jailbreak was plotted and enacted 10 years ago. Clearly you were both involved in some way. So you will testify before the court now and explain exactly what took place.
Very well, let the witnesses give their formal testimony. The court will know that the plot to break out Saugate Market Prison. I think this is a good stopping point right here. There can't be too much of, you know. Don't save. So thank you all for coming in, hanging out, lurking. Hope you have a good night. We may finish this tomorrow, but we'll just finish this Greatest Attorney this week. So tomorrow we actually get out late, so actually I don't think we even have a chance to play tomorrow. So be sure to check out my socials so you can stay up to date on stream changes and read the random stuff I post. And don't forget about my Shin Megami Tensei giveaway. Still going on. Alright, let's see who's on the raid still at this time.